That's the border. I'm sorry. This is
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular board meeting of March 12, 2019. At this time, I will ask you to turn your cell phones to silent, and I'd also like you to ask you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, can you do roll call, please?
Mr. Colwell?
Here.
Mr. Lilly's here. Mr. Roman?
here.
Scott Ruggles?
Here.
Liz Smith?
Here.
Powell?
Here.
Andrea Voorhees?
Present.
Okay, thank you very much. Looking for an approval of the agenda? Clerk?
Mr. Supervisor, a couple add-ons to the agenda. There is no new list of bills to be added tonight. The treasurer's report be added. Item 8B on the agenda is postponed. And also there'll be an addition of 10G, which will be a gravel road, Oakland County Road Commission.
Thank you. That's it? Looking for approval for the agenda?
So moved.
Support? Mr. Ruggles, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the ayes have it. Moving on to public comment. This is an opportunity for you to come up. You have 3 minutes if you have something to say. That typically is not on the agenda because we do try to talk about things that are on it from time to time. So if anyone has the need to come up to the podium and identify yourself, please.
Thank you. My name is Bill Chatfield. I'm the Operations Director for the Walled Lake School District, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to share with the board and with the community the proposed bond initiative that will be on the May 7th ballot. It is the Walled Lake Schools Building Infrastructure and Equity Bond. We have had a long and fruitful partnership with White Lake Township, and we know that children in White Lake Township attend many different school districts, but more than 1,300 White Lake students attend Walled Lake schools, so we thought it was important to share this information with you. In Walled Lake, now we have an opportunity to change the face of our school district in a significant manner at no additional cost to taxpayers. Due to increasing property values, due to new builds in the community, and refinancing of previous bonds, we find ourselves in an opportunity to invest $316 million into our buildings and infrastructure while still providing the taxpayers with a tax reduction. So the program will include several major initiatives. One that is of significant interest to the citizens of White Lake Township. We plan to rebuild Dublin Elementary School in its entirety. With a brand new Dublin Elementary School on the existing site, it would include a small early childhood center wing. We plan to significantly renovate Western High School to bring it up to the same educational and instructional standards as Central and Northern. We plan to construct an early childhood center to attract preschool children and retain them in Walled Lake schools. And as important as all of those, we plan significant infrastructure, security, and program improvements at all of the schools in the district. We have some tremendous needs in roofs and boilers and parking lots and windows and chillers and so much more. Our current school millage is 4.53 mils, which means the owner of a $200,000 home pays for approximately $453 a year in taxes. If this bond passes, that will drop to $413 per year. And it is important to note that bond monies can only be used for general operating, or cannot be used for general operating expenses, including salaries or benefits. So all funds generated would go directly to improving our school buildings. So this bond represents an opportunity to provide 21st century learning environments for all of our students while reducing taxes. We all know that good schools increase property values in the community, and it's truly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So I have provided the board a pamphlet with some documentation and information about the proposed bond. We are asking that you consider potentially passing a resolution in support of this bond initiative. I see you have a full agenda, so we certainly would not expect you to do that at this time. But if it's something you feel is important, we would urge you to do that. And I just thank you for giving me the opportunity to share that information with you, and urge everybody to vote on May the 7th. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Well, this is public comment, and we'll leave it as such. And we would look forward to another chance to talk to you in the future.
Thank you. I've left, I did bring some additional packets that I've left here in case any community members would like to have those.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Anyone else will have 3 minutes. Come to the podium and identify yourself.
Jean-Philippe Leuve, 247 Rosario Lane. There are two topics. One of them is the school bond, Dublin school, elementary school. One thing noticeable about that school is that there is a somewhat older portion of it, and when I hear tearing it down, it looks like we're cutting more of the history. We don't have that many historic buildings in the town. There were people who learn there. There's a little bit of, you can even see the date, so that's interesting. I have seen something similar happening in Waterford on Elizabeth Lake Road, where there was an older building with some brownstone. Behind was more like a modern. They tore down the front, and the back you have now something that looks like could be a shed. Apparently it's a school. Not very exciting, but except for the aesthetic of what's going to be put in place, I think there should be taken some consideration of not just teaching history, but also giving the kids a sense of history when they go to school. It's not like they're arriving in a school and the world started with them, but also show them there is a history. There have been people before that. Maybe their grandparents or some of their neighbors give them a sense of that. So maybe the township could make an appeal to, or mention, or convince the board, Wallet Lake School District boards, to take into that into consideration. Not destroy history, but live it, not just teach it theoretically, which can be very boring for some kids. When that is being done, at the corner between Williams Lake and Elizabeth, the school that was last year was redone. There are no sidewalks around it because they don't have to. So maybe if the school district is interested in your opinion, maybe you can mention to them that that will be also an opportunity for them to plan to put some sidewalks and safe access into that new school that they're investing in. And then, yeah, maybe when they're doing that school, they could make it also more energy efficient, maybe a green roof, maybe solar power or something like that. My second item is the new subdivision that is being planned at the Williams Lake Road and Elizabeth Lake Road. I call it Sandland. And there was on the zoning board, there was a public meeting also about it last month. And there needs to be a reflection on open spaces, because I could imagine New York, you build, and at some point, if you don't stop, you end up with no Central Park, and in Chicago, you don't have any front, anything. How far do we want to continue building everything up? Many other areas of White Lake were okay, but in that area, might be worth of some longer thinking of how we want to develop the township.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Last date in the time?
Your time is up, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can't turn it back, but we can slow it down once in a while.
Well, I'd like to make one comment. My name is Dwayne Roycraft from Melinda Circle, and I'm also talking about the Trail Meadows project. We had a nice meeting 21 February about the hearing. We're glad to see that it's always been a headache to us around there about the ATVs, so we're glad that headache is going to go away. But we want to make sure we're not replacing it with another headache. And there were a lot of good comments brought up at the hearing from residents with real-world experiences. And we trust that the board's going to take a look at those minutes and kick the tires on this thing to make sure it ends up to be a good project. Now, things like the drainage issue, why there's not an access to Williams Lake Road, and issues like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else at this time? Okay, moving along to consent agenda. Mr. Clerk,
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
a motion to approve, looking for support. I have support from Mr. Ruggles. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Item 7, approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of February 19th, 2019. Any comment or motion?
I just have one quick comment. As we have a new record keeper and she's getting to know us a little bit better, and us you, I would appreciate if some of the minutes could be a little bit more detailed. They seem to be a little more detailed in the past. And, this becomes our written record, and I think it's important that residents reading it maybe get a little bit more flavor of how us as a board feels and a little more detail of what we said on things. So I would just like to, please request that and note if it could be a little bit more detailed. I'd appreciate it.
Understood. Okay. Looking for a motion to approve?
Mr. Supervisor, I move approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting February 19th, 1919, or 2019.
2019. That's all right. I knew what you meant. I'm stuck sometimes there myself. I have a motion looking for approval.
I'll make that approval.
I have approval from Andrew. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Next item, presentations. I don't know where to start with this one. I am going to start with Bob Stevenson. He's the Executive Director of the Michigan Association of Chile. I said almost at Chile. Chiefs of Police. Thank you. I had the same problem earlier. This is something that I think we're real proud of, and I'll let you take it from there.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it, Mr. Supervisor, Township trustees. It is my honor to be here tonight to address you. My name is Bob Stevenson. I'm the Executive Director with the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police. Prior to that, I spent 37 years in the profession. Last 7 as chief with the city of Livonia. Been here 8 years in this current position. I come here tonight to represent the some 1,200 members of the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police. One of the major missions of our association is the elevation of the science of policing. And tonight we are here to recognize a significant achievement by the White Lake Township Police Department in that mission. We're here tonight to present, not to present, actually to award the certificate of accreditation from the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police to the White Lake Township Police Department. This is a significant achievement that your police department has voluntarily undertaken to elevate the status of their police department, which was already had a good reputation. Now it's even better. To give you a little bit of flavor to exactly what this accomplishment is, in the city or in the state of Michigan, there are some 600 police departments. Out of those 600 police departments, there have only been 16 that have achieved the certificate of accreditation. So your police department has achieved what 97% of the other police departments in the state of Michigan have not yet achieved. And it's a significant achievement. We're very proud to award this, and to give you a little bit better feel of just what the department went through to earn the certificate of accreditation, I'm going to turn the podium here over to Neil Rosso, who's a retired chief from Flat Rock and is a professional development director for the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police and also leads the accreditation program. Chief?
Again, thank you for allowing us to be here. Every time I present these, I tell people I became a police officer in 1978 and did a lot of pretty interesting things during my career, but truly one of the most rewarding things I've done is be able to come out to townships and municipalities and present this award. When I try to explain the work they went through, it seems pretty minimal, but I think if you look at the people in the back, they'll they'll be able to verify that it was very difficult. There's 105 standards. I'm sure you're all a little familiar with hospital accreditation or school accreditation, and there's 105 standards that probably require almost 500 things that the agency do within those 105 standards. They're based on state and national best practices, and what they had to do was take their written directive system or policies and procedures, weave them through those standards and make them comply with the standards, and then they had to be able to prove to 2 assessors from outside the area that are trained by the commission that they were not just having written directives that met the standards, but they were actually doing what they were saying they were doing. It's an ongoing process. They're going to have to give me annual reports, and in 3 years we'll actually be back to reassess them. So it is a big deal. They did a lot of work, and for that they should certainly be awarded. In addition to that, I just want to mention real quickly, when the commission wasn't formed until 2016, and so they worked hard and they worked fast, and Chief Dan Keller is one of our commissioners, one of our 11 commissioners, so I kind of asked him a while ago to do it, and he was more than generous to do it. So you have a great police agency here, and you should be very proud of it. Thanks. With that, the president of the Michigan Chiefs is Dave Malloy, the chief of Novi, and he'll actually present the award.
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor, member of the board. It is certainly an honor. I've had the privilege in my career to work with Chief Stevens, Chief Harris, Chief Klein, and now Chief Keller. I don't know who's smarter, them or me, but I'm still here. But I will tell you, this young man standing next to me is probably one of the finest that I've met, and the executive team that he's developed here at the White Lake Township Police Department is second to none. To take this endeavor to move the agency forward and to commit to the state best practices in, number one, our policies and procedures, how they treat people, the way in which they run this organization is truly commendable, and I'm extremely proud of Chief Keller and what he has done, and all the chiefs, because they set the groundwork and they recognize through succession planning and through leadership development on having a strong team that can take the place of the men and women when others move on. So it is my honor to present on behalf of the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police to the White Lake Township Police Department, having voluntarily complied with the standards established by the Michigan Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission, deemed essential for the delivery of professional police services, their certificate of accreditation. Congratulations, Chief.
Really can't thank these three enough. The MECP has really brought professionalism to the police departments in the state of Michigan. These three leaders have been leaders for a long time, but they couldn't be more supportive and in a better spot to bring Michigan to that next step, and I appreciate them so much. Thanks, guys. I also want to talk, like, I know they went through it, but this was hours and hours, hundreds of hours of going from what we used to have, or Chief Watt. Malloy, did you know Chief Watt? Long time ago, so you didn't know that one. So Chief Watt was back in the 70s, and there was still his name on a couple general orders, which is unacceptable. This program, and with the help of Sergeant Matt Silverthorne, come on out, Matt. Where you at? Sergeant Matt Silverthorne, he put in hundreds and hundreds of hours of work, and they burned through a lot of paper, and they brought the Power DMS program to White Lake, and we couldn't ask for a better accreditation manager. He's done such a great job. I want to give him a round of applause. But it's not just that. Sergeant Gondek was here, and Lieutenant Hild, and now Chief Larry Sheldon put in a lot of effort. It was a big team effort. Every officer put in their blood, sweat, and tears in this program. And because of this program, we are a better police department and we are a safer community. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. That's amazing, and it's a very proud moment for White Lake Township. I may ask our cameraman, I've just received a couple of notices that there seems to be a technical glitch and we're not on live stream.
I was going to mention that. Thank you.
So if you can maybe take a second, see if you can.
It's just going to be recorded and uploaded.
Okay, all right, okay, all right. All right, thank you. Okay, well, now it's going to be the floor again for you. I'd like to thank all the chiefs from the Michigan Association of Chief Police for coming here tonight and taking your time. And I also understand you're going to kind of haul Dan away from us here in a short bit, so that's just fine. Dan is now going to do a presentation of White Lake Township Police 2018 year-end in review. Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. So did this last year for 2017, and we'll do it again every year, and this will be for 2018. It's just a year in review of the accomplishments and some of the data that we've had that I'm going to share with you and to the public. In front of you is the Youth Police Academy. That's me in front with all the kids. I love making them sweat and earn their graduation certificate. And the bottom right is the 5K that we had in the fall. You can go to the next one. So last year, I gave you the glass cleaner, and it has our mission statement on it. So our mission statement is what we are right now, and our vision statement is what we strive to be. I just want to read it because it's kind of small. It is the vision of the White Lake Township Police Department to set the standard in Oakland County as a community service-oriented agency using a professional, proactive approach to crime and quality of life issues, to strive to constantly better ourselves and continually gain further trust and respect from the community through training, transparency, and partnerships with the stakeholders of the township, to be accountable for our actions and decisions at all levels to those we are sworn to serve, to be on the cutting edge of training in order to ensure that the best police service possible is provided to anyone having contact and needing assistance with the police department. All right. So the mission statement is important, but this is important as well because it's what we strive to be and what we are achieving today. All right. So last year we had a bunch of hires and a bunch of retirements, and we kind of came back down to reality. Heidi Kripchek worked in records. She retired after 18 years. We had a couple new hires. If Emily Eboff, she looks familiar, she was our cadet. She decided that she didn't want to be a police officer and that a dispatcher was in her best interest, and really, and quite honestly, the police department's best interest because she's outstanding. She's been on her own now. She went through 4 months of training, and she is on her own now for the past couple of weeks, and she's doing a great job. And if you see the cadet, he's really excited to be here. He's a good kid. Stephen Bohez, he's our new cadet, and he will be going to the police academy this fall. And I'm hoping if we have the opportunity, we can hire him. And then we hired, to replace Heidi, we hired a records clerk, Andy Swalwell, who's doing an outstanding job in the records. All right, just a breakdown of who we are. I'm the chief of police. We have 2 lieutenants. Chris is in the back. He's in charge of investigations. He went from patrol last year, and now he's in charge of investigations when Larry left. And we are in the process of promoting sergeant to that lieutenant patrol position or the investigative position. And we have 5 sergeants, 4 on patrol, and then Sergeant Silverthorne is the admin sergeant. All right, we have 20 police officers. We have 15 on patrol, 2 detectives, 1 team officer. Team officer, we had DARE, and we switched to TEAM, which is the little updated program. It's a Michigan State Police program that we've replaced with DARE. I think it's better suited for the kids today. We have a school liaison at the high school, and we switched our net officer from county to the DEA. So he's down in Detroit. He's providing a better service for us. He's dealing with the big stuff in the DEA, and he's getting it from the top. So I think he's more effective and efficient there instead of net. All right, we finally have 6 full-time dispatchers with Emily. It's great. They feel a lot better. Being a dispatcher is one of the hardest jobs in the police department. I couldn't do it. They do a great job and provide a great service for the township. We got the outstanding Jason Hudson as our ordinance officer. We have 2 records clerks, a secretary, 1 admin assistant, which is Jen, who's awesome. Right, Jen?
Just ask me.
Yeah, just ask you. And 1 cadet. All right, I know that's small. That's just our chart. We're on 12-hour shifts. We have a sergeant for each shift and 4 officers on each shift except for one of the midnights where I'm going to try to to get a fourth spot in there because they need it. I think the 4-man shift with the sergeant makes 5 it's just an outstanding, and it provides great service for the citizens of White Lake. The fancy showmanship on the slides is all Jen too. She's pretty outstanding. So we responded to almost 28,000 complaints, which resulted in over 2,100 formal complaints and investigations. We investigated 769 traffic crashes and stopped 8,433 cars for traffic law violations. Now, within those stops, we issued 4,694 traffic violations and 4,100 traffic warnings. So we're not ticket heavy. If you deserve a ticket, you're getting one. If you don't, you don't. We give tickets for a purpose. We just don't give them for revenue, and we never will. All right, so that's a picture of everybody who assisted and helped out at the open house. And on the left side, we completed over 3,800 vacation house checks. We performed 748 special attentions, which are called in by citizens if they need anything special anything special in their neighborhood or around their residence. We completed over 8,000 neighborhood checks, interviewed almost 18,000 individuals, arrested 1,130 criminals, including 214 drunk drivers. All right, so our dispatchers do so much more than what's up there, but we're going to go with the calls. They handled over almost 27,000 incoming phone calls, as well as over 8,000 emergency 911 calls. They dispatched 12,000 police calls and dispatched almost 3,000 fire department calls for service. Investigations, they had 649 case assignments, which they got 357 warrants. They handled 178 prisoners and arrested 11, and that's Detective Saracen up there with me as Officer of the Year last year. So this is my pride and joy, the White Lake Police Foundation. Normally the police foundations assist other police officers. I wanted to do something different, and I think we're doing a good job at it. We want to assist the citizens of White Lake with our foundation, with the youth of the township, along with the citizens. So this is a dual purpose, and we raise money to bring awareness through the Citizens Academy, through the 5K. We have our team officer, we have our open house, our police youth academy, and our golf outing. So, and I want to give a special thanks to Oakland County Bar Foundation, who gave us $10,500 for team, and which goes towards a lot of our books that we are making for the 5th and 7th graders through the team program. So this is our wheel. This is what we do. The vacation house checks, I've explained some of these. We have the vacation house checks, the PACT, which is Police and Community Together, where we have our sergeants go out and meet with community leaders and subdivisions on a monthly basis. And I most often go to their annual meetings so we can address any concerns they have. We sweat the small stuff, and so in that small stuff, things don't become big. So if we sweat the small stuff, which we do, we take care of the problem, and then we move on. And it's been a great program. It's worked effectively and efficiently, and the citizens like it. Our Facebook, we jumped about 1,000 followers. We're up at 6,400. We have our prescription drug drop-off at the station, and we have our school liaison officer, as I said. I can move to the next one. All right, so these are criminal statistics. These are really good statistics. Home invasions went from 24 in 17 to 14 in 18. Larceny violations went from 142 in 17 to 87 in 18. Motor vehicle theft went from 13 to 11, and arsons went from 2 to 0. All right, so this is new for 2019. We received the award for the accreditation. We're starting our new CERT program, which is Citizens Emergency Response Team. That starts Monday. We have 24 participants for the first class, and they will be dealing with We'll be training citizens in disaster preparedness, search and rescue, and in basic response skills. So it's going to be a joint police and fire effort to get people trained so they can, if there are issues that we need assistance, we can call them and they'll come out. We also bought a system called Guardian Tracking, which is a software and performance management system. It'll better provide the officers and the sergeants and myself with real-time tracking of how the officer, if the officer's doing great, if the officer's doing poorly, it'll be real-time tracker, and it'll better service the community because the officers will know on a daily basis if they're doing great or if they need to improve. And then, as you know, you approved the body cameras at the beginning of the year. We'll be getting those. They should start to take effect in April or in early May. And again, the reason I brought back the 2019 Special Olympics, because we've done better this year. I'm going to go to the next slide. Remember, if you saw Brad Connell, he was it. So all those, he went from 1 to 10 or 11 people participated, and they raised over $3,000. Was Brad? Tom? I couldn't be more proud of it's not just officers or sergeants in there. There's the records and dispatch. They raised over $3,000 for Special Olympics Michigan. This is our outreach outside of our community, and they've done such a great job. I couldn't be more proud, and they won best costume as a team, so, which they deserve. And that's it. Unless you have any questions, I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Chief. That's
Outstanding,
very
Chief.
impressive.
I think you deserve a round of applause.
I appreciate it. Thank you
Hey,
very
Chief,
much.
just one thing. We need a new building to put that plaque in.
Yes. 2021, we'll work on it.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chief. I really appreciate that, and have a good time now.
Thank you.
Okay, excuse me. Resolutions, 9A, Resolution 19-005, to adjourn the Sutler's Point Special Assessment Hearing. That's been before us a couple of times. I guess there's some further things that have to be sought in that, and we just want to adjourn it one more time till we get things kind of caught up. That's pretty much where it's at, right, Aaron?
We are out to bids currently, and so we will be on the agenda for the next meeting with hopefully a recommendation for the board to accept a bid.
Okay, very good. With that, I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
Do we adjourn or postpone?
It'll be adjourned.
Adjourn. Okay.
Mr. Clerk?
I can make a motion to approve Resolution 19-005 to adjourn the hearing to confirm the special assessment role for Settlers Point from March to April 16, 2019.
I have a motion. Bring your support.
Support.
Support from Mr. Herman. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Item 9B is Resolution 19006, intention for Special Assessment District for First Emergency Sewer Hookup for 2019. My understanding, we have a few that were from 18 that we kind of grouped together with this. This is an ongoing program that the township has put in place. It's an emergency sewer hookup. I'm having problems with the S's today. If your septic system was to fail and you are within a sewer district and you have, don't have and it's a financial situation, there are means and mechanisms there that you have to go through to get this assistance, but nonetheless, to try to put the residents in a better place on the city sewer and to help keep the environment a little bit cleaner. So we have, what, four this time in this group? Okay, so, and we didn't, again, as I had mentioned, we didn't actually do it in 18 because we let them kind of compile. And so now, yeah, now we'll get this one. Mr. Roman.
Oh, Janine, do you have a rough estimate or ballpark as to what the total of the four was?
I do, but actually, I don't think I did total, but I'll definitely have for you.
Just a ballpark if you...
I want to say they're about 20,000 apiece because there were a couple that were
It's about 80 grand.
gravity, so.
Okay, thanks.
I knew a few of them were, but I wasn't sure. We're in good shape on that fund, so there's no issues there. Okay, looking for a motion. Mr. Miles? You're a sewer kind of guy. So.
Yes, all right. Mr. Supervisor, before I make the motion.
In a good way.
Yeah, oh, well, thank you. Before I make the motion, I just wanted to point out to the residents that we do have sewers throughout the township, and as the supervisor pointed out, if you're in need of connection, this township is ready, willing, and able to assist you in connecting and participate with you in fronting some of the costs. That being said, there's also a number of homes in the community that need sanitary sewers to be extended to them. And I'm looking for this township to step up and promote the extension of sanitary sewers and even assist in those extensions to the point to where this board maybe steps up and agrees that it's in the best interest of the community to have sewers extended. So that being said, I move the resolution 19-006, the intention for the establishment of a special assessment district for the first emergency sewer hookup for 2019.
I have a motion, looking for support. Support. I have support from Mr. Ruggles. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you very much. 9C, Resolution 19007 to approve the 2019 dust control program. You look outside, you don't think too much about dust, but you will be soon enough, hopefully, if it ever gets warm. This is a typical program that we go into every year, and we do this for the benefit of the residents in the community. Any questions from the board? Or?
This is someone that lives off a dirt road that will eventually live on a dirt road. This is an awesome program.
It does make a difference. Okay, looking for a motion to, yes, Mr. Lilly.
Make a motion to approve Resolution 19007 for participation in 2019 Road Commission for Oakland County Dust Control Program and authorize the Township Supervisor to sign.
I have a motion, looking for support.
Support that.
Support from Andy Voorhees. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Going down to 10, new business. We're looking to hear from someone from the police department. And who? Okay, there he is. How are you?
Good. Thank you. Lieutenant Christopher Hild, White Lake Township Police Department. I'd like to thank the board for your service to the community and say hi to Mr. and Mrs. Early. I haven't seen you in a while. They were part of my PAC program when I was a sergeant, so and happy belated birthday to you. This is our 2019 purchase proposal for our fleet. I've been involved with the purchases in the past, and what we are looking at doing this year is saving some money. Recently, Ford had announced a change in the police utility vehicle. They're going to a hybrid vehicle, and in doing so, they had to create more space for lithium batteries. It poses somewhat of concern for us in law enforcement because it's a new vehicle, and generally in new years you have problems associated with that. So a lot of agencies have decided to attempt to purchase vehicles in advance and get a 2019 model, which is exactly the same vehicle that we're operating out of now, to save the headaches on recalls and also to save some money. What we're looking at for 2019 is a request to purchase 3 vehicles, which is consistent with our annual purchase each year. Sometimes that may include administration vehicles. This year it is strictly restricted to our fleet. With that, we're looking at saving $3,000 per vehicle, $9,000 overall. The cost that we were given on the new vehicle that is identical to what we were purchasing would be $30,600 per vehicle, or just there over, by maybe $100 depending on which dealer you go to. Whereas right now we can purchase the same vehicles for $27,551. If you're looking at the same documents that I have, I've told the chief on there, there's a $50 cost on that top line Gorno. That wasn't included initially, but it's a harness, electrical harness system that we need for our light apparatus in the front of the vehicle. So I've included that into this. So in order to do this, we were asking for approval on $82,653, which would give us 3 2019 vehicles that are equipped identical to our current fleet. Would allow easy transition from our current fleet equipment into the new vehicles, and also save us $9,000 as well. The vehicles will require additional outfitting that usually is taking place as soon as we take delivery. The chief has decided to come to the board with that numbered as a separate item. We're concerned that the cost of steel may go up with the tariffs potentially, and therefore we wouldn't be able to give you an exact, accurate count at this time what some of that cost might be. So we've deferred to the fall for those purchases on the upgrade. These vehicles would go into service sometime this fall, depending on when we would take delivery on them.
Very good. Any questions from the board?
Where do you keep them in the meantime?
Well, they're not here, so they're at right now. If they come in, they're at Gorno Ford. What we're seeing now is there's a kind of a mad dash to get as many vehicles as possible. We're short one vehicle. They did cut an order from us, but the county has a package that's very similar to ours, and it's keyed alike, so it wouldn't cost us anything different. Gorno has told us that they would give us those vehicles also for the exact same price, which is they're not making much on that deal, and they're still, I think, yeah, they're still under the other 2 bids that we received from Signature. What we plan on doing, if we're able to get these vehicles, we would get them prepped and ready for equipment to go into the fall, so they can transition over pretty quickly with the new camera systems that the chief was explaining. Get that ready to go, and I guess according to the chief, we were going to talk to Lakeside Towing to potentially store some of them over there, and or discuss with the township whether we could store them here out on the side where some of our other equipment is already.
Okay. Thanks.
Very good. Any other questions? Okay. I think we are all about trying to save some money, and I also am concerned about the new.
Yeah, that hybrid, if we can give it a year, that's probably going to be a good cost savings for us. They're projecting over a $3,000 cost per vehicle per year on that hybrid. It runs off of 2 sizable lithium batteries. And in order to accommodate those, they had to change the chassis on the vehicle. That's the additional cost. So our current package went up $30,000 if we buy it without the hybrid. So they're using the same chassis, and that's a change in the cost right there. But we would like to see the actual stats on that hybrid vehicle for at least a year from other agencies before we make that decision. But it could be a significant savings in the future.
Okay, I'm going to look for a motion. Mr. Lilly?
Motion to approve the purchase of 3 2019 Ford Police utility vehicles at a cost of $82,503 from Gorner Ford in Woodhaven.
Terry, can I ask you to bump that number up to 83,000?
83.
I amend the motion to 83.
83,000. Okay. I have a motion, legal support. Support from Ms. Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Chris.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. Thanks for coming. Okay, and now we're talking about technology because it seems that it's a continual race trying to keep up with it. And we are looking at a request to approve our PC replacements and upgrades for 2019. Currently, what we have is computers that are starting to reach a certain age that we cannot get support and have a variety of other issues, and I'm sure Sean has something to say about that at different times. And I know Terry's computer sometimes tries to decide whether or not it wants to come to work or not on certain days, as mine has done. So unfortunately, the technology that we have in place has to be updated from time to time. And with that, we are going to be looking at a cost of,
It's $40,822.
thank you, $40,000. So $40,822. And we will reluctantly but necessarily look forward. This is coming through IT Right, who is our township's IT provider. I think it's competitive pricing on this type of product, and provides services not only to install these but to maintain, troubleshoot, and take care of the general issues that come and go with this stuff as it from time to time happens. I'm not going to sit here and say that it doesn't. It does happen. So any questions from the board? Mr. Powell.
I just wondered whether or not our staff went through their other peripheries to find out whether or not, certainly Windows 7 is very antiquated, and they're proposing to upgrade to Windows 10. I found professionally that a lot of our supportive hardware is not accommodated in Windows 10. The plotters in your office, the plotter may not operate on Windows 10. That's a concern, and wondering whether any of our software will need to be upgraded. BSNA, does that operate in Windows 10 as it currently is? I'm thinking that there are going to be a large number of additional costs if we upgrade.
There's ultimately going to be a list of other things that are going to come our way. There's no question about it. Their level of confidence, and Kathy DeRocher's done the homework on this, and they seem to be relatively at ease that it'll be able to accommodate most of our needs. I'm sure something will come up inevitably.
Okay, then I also noticed that there appears to be a different set of computers for Township, Police, and Fire. Is it a total of $40,000 from our general fund, or is $25,000 for general, $13,000 for police, and $4,000 for fire?
It'll be broken up proportionally.
Okay, thank you.
So they'll be allocated to each department. The computers in the police department, a couple of them are a little more sophisticated for obvious reasons. They've got a few extra goodies that they have there, as well as the fire. The prices on some of the PCs are fairly favorable, I mean, compared to what they used to be years ago. I mean, when I looked at the list, I was kind of like taken back on a number of units, and I start to walk through the township, and I realized just how many computers there are.
Yep.
Every person that we have here has a computer, and sometimes there's two in the department for multiple purposes. So I don't think it's an overkill buy, although we try to monitor it as best we can. I think I can't even tell you when the last time we actually bought them. It's been a while. The date, I think it's been probably about 7 or 8 years, I think, since the last time we updated. And again, the biggest concern is the software. And I share your concern and make sure that the equipment and the drivers and things sort, that we don't have that problem. So that will all be looked at with IT Right.
Hey, Rick, do we know what happens to the old computers?
I'm not sure of the disposition of them, although if I'm going to verify with Kathy, I don't believe there's any return in or credit on this particular program, as now computers have become as common as silverware in a sense. So, however, we do have what I will call surplus properties at the township that we will entertain liquidating at some sort of a auction or garage sale here in the not-too-distant future. Mr. Lilly and I have talked about that. We've got a myriad of little things you just kind of collect over the years, and sometimes it's time to just kind of like just at home, kind of clean out the garage every now and then. So, same type of thing. Good questions. Any other questions from the board? Mr. Royals?
Oh, yeah, does this include this one right here?
That concludes all the units, yes.
Okay. Just making sure.
I asked the same
We had
question.
an issue.
Yeah, last Thursday, this one decided it was done for the evening.
I understood it. It decided it was done. It was going home early.
It came back to work the next day,
Yeah.
thankfully. but, yeah.
And that's a classic case in point, and that was what tail end of the, when was that?
Right in the middle.
Right in the middle of the meeting?
We had to take to cell phones. We had a real hardship. We worked through it.
Okay, very good. Mr. Lilly?
I know the issue of bids always seems to come up, but I'd like to just acknowledge the fact that IT Right does maintain our server, and currently, and I'd like to read just this paragraph into the record. It says, the advantages in ordering these Microsoft upgrades and replacements through IT Right includes a 3-year warranty and the convenience that the technicians who service our equipment carry commonly accepted parts, literally in the trunks of their cars, leading to less downtime. IT Right also keeps additional inventory if a computer is beyond repair and needs to be replaced, again, leading to less downtime, and that's a really important function in the township hall here.
Right. So I saw a hand or two out there, which I will address a couple of these questions that you might have. Yes. Here's a microphone for you here. We can actually, we've updated. We got Mr. Microphone now, so.
Thank you. Jean-Philippe Leuve, 247 Rosario Lane. About the computer, there could be a security risk because all these computers contain some confidential information. And so I wonder if the company who takes them back has some special procedures to wipe them really clean, not just a delete, but some military grade kind of a wiping, because the police and fire department, everything, you wouldn't want that to get out.
No, I share the same concern. These are things that we're addressing.
What if we smash them?
Thank you. Next question, anybody else? No, good? Okay. Okay, with that, I'm looking for a motion. Yes, Mr. Lilly.
Make a motion to approve the recommended upgrades as suggested by IT Right to the computer system at the cost of $40,822.
Motion, looking for support?
Support.
Support, Manuel Voorhees. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Okay. Item 10D, first reading of Trailside Meadows rezoning.
Tennessee.
I beg your pardon. 10C, I'll be fine. 10C, preliminary site plan is Center Point Plaza. I forgot my reading. Mr. O'Neill.
Thank you, sir. Hopefully all of you found your minutes from or your copy of the draft minutes from the Planning Commission meeting of March 7th at your seat, and it was emailed to you yesterday. With the close proximity of these two meeting dates, it kind of crunched things a little bit, so we appreciate your flexibility. In your packet, you saw a cover letter that included all of the review letters from all of the reviewing parties. The one missing, and the site plan. The one missing piece was just this set of minutes, and you can see from the minutes that the Planning Commission recommended unanimously that the site plan be approved, through the preliminary stage, with taking into account all of the comments from the reviewing parties. So, on the screen behind you, just for orientation purposes, you'll see Township Hall right here. This beautiful building here at the corner where we all sit, and then this is the AutoZone store just east of us. It's this, the old water softener building and the home behind it. You all saw this rezoning request come before you a couple of months ago. Mr. Pope, who is in the crowd tonight, is the new owner. So it's, will soon demolish this building and the home behind it. He was gracious enough to work with the fire department to allow them to train in these buildings, which is a rare opportunity for them, and so we really appreciate that as well. This parcel will be almost the exact same size and configuration as AutoZone. There really wasn't a whole lot to say about this one. It was pretty straightforward. In your packet, you will see, I think starting on page 15, let me zoom over and scroll down here. You'll find the site plan. Back out here. Mr. Pope is a business owner himself and intends to occupy a good portion of this building. Here's the layout. Basically the back half of the building, which is tenant space 6, and I assume he's flexible, but probably 4 or 5 retail spaces will be at the front of this building. This is really the layout. M59 is on the right-hand side of the screen. That's the driveway coming in from M59. And here is AutoZone at the top of the screen or to the east of the site. One thing that was commented on, and we spoke about this at the Planning Commission, there will be a cross connection, as is the case on all projects like this on M59. Mr. Pope doesn't show it. We're actually working with AutoZone currently to kind of make this seamless. So there is an agreement that Mr. Pope will be signing to make this this cross connection. So there's accessibility both ways for patrons, and really the only restriction is that Mr. Pope not use it for construction, which he doesn't intend to and wouldn't need to. So AutoZone will construct the balance of their connection point, which is maybe 8 or so feet to the property line, and then again Mr. Pope will connect his at that same location. One thing that was mentioned that really wasn't in any of the review comments, Mr. Pope is going to work with the township and the neighbor here who, if we go back to the aerial, you can see there's a great deal of wetland. And the neighbor has a home here on several acres, and you're really limited as far as your ability to access this property without cutting through a wetland. So I asked Mr. Pope to touch base with this neighbor and invite him in to meet and really talk about possibly sharing a driveway with that individual. So in that instance, and this would be done assuming this moves forward tonight prior to final approval, this driveway would move to the west and really be located straddling the property line, so that the neighbor to the I keep wanting to say south, but it's because it's turned here, to the west of him would have this access, and Mr. Pope would benefit as well by having the driveway out from in front of his building, kind of the way it's situated now. So I think it worked better for him. It would cause less of, my fear was, and I said it to the Planning Commission, if it's approved in this configuration and built, when the guy next door comes to develop, they're going to be moving that driveway anyway. And then it's going to be a disruption to his business and all the other tenants, because I don't think they're going to build a bridge to access that property. It's not a gigantic piece of land, so I don't think it would really make financial sense. So it makes sense to do it now. Mr. Pope is receptive to doing it now. Our hope is the neighbor will be too, and this will be done right the first time, and there won't be kind of any looking back. So there were some comments about screening and landscaping. That'll be dealt with at final. Really, Mr. Pope's been great to work with, and this has been a pretty straightforward process from the beginning. So I'll scroll down to some of the elevations. These aren't really in full. Well, here's a better color rendering, but it's kind of what the front of the building will look like from M59. Looks like the fall, maybe.
Yeah,
Are those
must be
leaves?
fall.
I don't know. If we could have spring and summer first, we'd appreciate it. But so just some more materials that are in the packet. That's again an aerial with leaves off the trees. So, and here's that property that is to the west. You can see really there's room for a driveway to kind of skirt between the property line and the wetlands. So, anybody has any questions? I know Mr. Pope is here and available to answer them, and I'd be happy to attempt to answer them as well.
Well, I think driveway issue is forward thinking. There's no question about it, and it also would eliminate one driveway on M59, which we all know can't hurt. So I don't think you'd have any issue with anybody supporting that one, I would think. Hopefully the other property owner will understand its value to him from a number of different aspects and will be agreeable to it.
Right. We really felt that it was more of a tweak to the site plan. At this point, we're really confirming that there's feasibility and the land use is appropriate, and that you don't object to this kind of I guess, land use going in this property, and the exact location of the driveway really is up to MDOT anyway, and I assume when the time comes, they're gonna wanna push this driveway further west anyway, so I think we're trying to get out in front of that, and, Mr. Pope was happy to make that contact.
Any questions from the board?
Certainly, the drive heading to the west would be greatly appreciated, and along with that, you'd want to look at how far north does the easement go to allow access to the property to the west, so that you don't necessarily have to turn off immediately in the road right-of-way, that they can go down a little bit, and then of course you get into some sharing of costs for maintenance and all that kind of stuff. I did notice that appeared to be the loading unloading zone is back kind of in front of the dumpster area in the back. If deliveries were to be needed, the units along the front, the dollies or whatever, have to drive all the way around, or have to be pulled all the way around to the front of the building. So it's a little bit inconvenient, even for UPS or anything like that, to park all the way to the back and then walk to the front. There doesn't seem to be any access off the rear of the building, which is a little unusual. And then I did notice that most of the parking is in the back of the building and the entrances are at the front. So you're probably looking at employees parking in the back and walking around to the front, so the patrons then have the front first option in the front. The only other item that I wanted to support is an item in the J&A's review letter, that the stormwater system is all underground and it needs to be very carefully designed to be able to be cleaned. As currently designed, it really can't be cleaned, and I think J&A has a very good handle on what needs to happen in order to allow for that system to be cleaned. So other than that, I welcome you, Mr. Pope.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Glad to see. Looks good. Nice looking building. Okay, any further questions? Looking for a motion? Mr. Lilly?
Make a motion to approve the preliminary site plan approval for parcels 1221 to 76020 and 1221 to 7602002, subject to the recommendations being satisfied from the township departments and consultants.
Motion, looking for support?
Support.
Support. All in favor?
I just have a quick question before we vote. For Sean, so as far as moving the driveway to the west, do you contact that property owner now?
I think Mr. Pope was going to attempt to. I'm happy to as well. I think he just felt like he would go knock on his door, give him a phone call, and kind of start there. And we'll certainly help facilitate any conversations and explain kind of the process. And if we need to involve MDOT, because ultimately the decision is theirs, and we'll go meet with them too. It just seems like it makes a great deal of sense to spend a little bit of time now to avoid a problem or.
No, I agree. I just wasn't sure who was in charge of making it happen.
I'm in contact with Al Woldart, who's the owner of the property, actually today, earlier, so kind of an update regarding telephone poles and some things we have to do there. So I'm meeting with DTE and him on site Friday morning, and I want to talk to him a little bit more and talk to Sean a little bit more about that, so we can possibly go ahead and get a meeting that's put him in front of Sean, so that we can use his expertise to really explain what I'm trying to do with the driveway, because it's a little more difficult for me to try and do that without all the background that Sean has.
Great. And I will give MDOT a call before that meeting to make sure that the information that I'm presenting to him, that they support. I don't want to speak for them, so I'll make sure I contact them and run this by them as well.
Well, Sean, we have a access agreement with the road commission to limit the drives off of M59, so certainly we have some ammunition there.
Absolutely, and that is something that really we've been very steadfast in implementing over the years, and I think it's paying dividends. I mean, I believe it was funny today. Some of these things are like time capsules. It was almost exactly 9 years ago that AutoZone finally executed that access easement agreement, and prior owner just wasn't interested, and they weren't forced to sign it. The new development is basically as a condition of their approval. So sometimes they sit for many years before it comes to fruition, and then when it does, it just makes everything work better. So,
all right. Well, it's a very positive thing. Okay, where were we again before we were
Ready to take a
derailed?
Ready to take a vote.
Okay, we're ready to take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Jeez. See what you do, Scott?
Second the motion.
I second it.
Mike seconded it. I knew we got to a certain point, but I want to double check that. Okay. Okay, item 10D, the first reading of the Trailside Meadows rezoning. Mr. O'Neill.
Okay, this is a kind of a two-pronged request because, as you can see, this is rezoning and preliminary site plan because it is a request for PD. Just taking you back to kind of where the planning. Let me start with orientation, I guess. I'm grabbing the wrong mouse here. Elizabeth Lake Road is right here. Williams Lake Road is over here. Let's see, Houghton Elementary is right here. Mulligan's Landscaping right here. Colony Heights neighborhood is right here. This very large and treed parcel is the parcel in question. It's approximately 73 acres in size, and it's, as you can see, fairly well wooded. It's also got quite a bit of topography on it. As you could probably see from your site plan, there are two connection points to Elizabeth Lake Road, one through this stand of trees, and then there's a flag lot. It's been referred to as a flag lot that runs through this area between neighbors, and actually I think one of the neighbors' driveway is into that particular area, so there's not a proposed connection through that 60-foot flag of land. There are also two connections to Colony Heights at Sharon and Sherry, which are these two stub streets. Where are we at here?
Just to your left. There you go.
Yes, there it is. Lost in the wilderness there. Okay, so these are public roads. There are private roads proposed in this neighborhood. There'll be cross-access easements in similar fashion what we just discussed between two neighboring parcels that will allow these roads in this new neighborhood, if approved, to function as if they are public roads. Just so happens that Colony Heights is going through the process of reconstructing their entire road network through an SAD, working with the Road Commission. So one of the major points of contention, and I'm kind of starting in an odd way with this presentation, but was that these roads not be used by construction traffic. And of course, we never want existing neighborhoods to be used if there's another access point. And in this case, there certainly is to Elizabeth Lake Road. The only time they'll need to really access this property through Sharon or Sherry, probably Sharon right here, would be to mobilize their equipment to do tree clearing. And then they'll clear their way out to Elizabeth Lake Road and take all of the material that they're going to truck out through that entrance on Elizabeth Lake Road, and then we will have them block off with temporary barricades those road connections as long as heavy construction is going on. I mean, a heating and cooling van driving through there is really no big deal, but we don't want lumber trucks, drywall trucks, concrete trucks going through there ever, and in particular when they've spent $900,000, which is the rough estimate, on the road system, and the developer is sensitive to that and aware that we'll not be allowing that. So just to kind of let you know, that's where this property is located. Both of the two action items, actually they were separated. They don't normally, where'd it go? There it is. Planning Commission felt comfortable in moving the request for rezoning along to you with a recommendation for approval on February 21st, but they had some concerns about the site plan. So they asked the developer to go back and clean the site plan up and make some changes that they had asked and that the developer had offered to make in order to send you a more complete and accurate and clean plan. So they came back 2 weeks later, and that was last week, Thursday, the 7th, at which time, and I don't want to jump back and forth, but they're really, conjoined as an action item. But the Planning Commission, and you'll see again in the minutes that were before you tonight, recommended preliminary site plan approval for these revised plans, which we'll get into. And some of the benefits that are being offered will be discussed, I believe, by the developer in their presentation, but they include a contribution to the SAD for Colony Heights. They include upsizing of a water main. Aaron might want to touch base on that later to help to increase capacity and to kind of balance out some of the pressures in the in that area of the water system. They'll be extending sanitary to their property about, what, 1,700 feet? Is that right, guys? To, from Blackberry Hills to the, yeah, so they're nearing a half-mile extension to get this property on sewer. And they're also going to either install or contribute to a fund to have the sidewalk down Elizabeth Lake Road to the east toward Williams Lake Road installed on the south side of the road, so we can actually get people walking somewhere and possibly kids to school. I think someone mentioned earlier that the schools recently redid their parking lot and didn't put a single flag of concrete in. That was not the school district you heard from tonight, a different school district. But those are the kinds of things that we really need to work on changing. So when some of these networks go in, they'll lead you somewhere. So this is the overall plan. Again, the orientation up is north. So here are the two connection points. Let me back out a little bit. That I mentioned to Sharon and Sherry. And this is what the driveway will look like out to Elizabeth Lake Road. One of the neighbors had mentioned a connection out to Williams Lake Road. There's quite a bit of grade. I mean, it's very steep. Dozens of feet of drop off at some points to the south and to the east. They don't own the property. Benny Lane kind of touches the corner of this property. It's a private road. It's not. I think there are 3 homes on it. It's not really designed to take this traffic. While I'm sensitive to the concern about traffic, that's not something that we can necessarily force them to do. It's something they could offer to do on their own. I don't know, again, if it's physically a very easy thing to accomplish, but that was one of the comments we heard during the public hearing, and many of those comments are reflected in your minutes. Another item was stormwater. You can see at the top left corner, the northwest corner, this is the detention basin. There'll be an outlet to Elizabeth Lake Road, and Allen Lake is the eventual destination for quite a bit of the stormwater in this area, but based on some of the local historians I've spoke with who have been around a while, that may not have, that's been lacking.
Does that
Yes,
mean Terry?
it means Terry. I just didn't want to date him. Terry was 7 when he started, so he's, it was 60 years ago or so. It's, there's a high likelihood that there's some clean out and possibly maintenance and maybe more, through, and I don't know, Terry, you had asked to have an aerial so you could kind of take a look at some of this too.
I wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, but this is Allen Lake, and this is where the stormwater eventually ends up, but how it gets there is another matter. The basin for Colony Heights also drains to that lake, so further investigation will certainly need to be done. Our engineer and our DPS director and the applicant's engineer are aware of this concern and are going to have to work together to make sure that that's resolved. I don't know if you want to get into any of the review comments. I know you've all had those in your packet. I will probably go hoarse reading all those letters, and you never want me to read to you, but if you have any questions for me or want me to go in anything in further detail, I'm happy to do that. Obviously, Aaron and Mike are here. The applicants are here, and I know want to go through a brief PowerPoint presentation to acclimate you to the project, but it's basically 184 units. There are 2 different types of products that I think they'll explain in greater detail. Keep jumping around here. Basically, these lighter colored lots are for single family homes geared towards families, many of them 2-story, and these darker boxes are active adult building pads. Actually, this is a unique product that we don't have yet, in that it's a condo, but it's not an attached condo. So it really is a true condominium development, but they're all single family and detached. So each owner will own their unit, but they'll own none of their yard around them. It's basically general common element. So in that. Pardon? I will, yeah, I definitely want. I know they may want to get to it in their presentation, but so you'll own your lot in the single family, in the single family phase. You will not own your lot in the active adult phase. So
What I'd like to do before we ask any questions on any of this, I'd like them to do their presentation.
Absolutely.
In case any questions arise during that presentation, and we can answer them all at one time.
Yeah, and Aaron and I were just talking. I think some of the stuff I'm going to let them, like some of the elevation stuff, because I think it's good for you to see. And some of the other amenities they'll get to. So Brad Botham is with MI Homes, and he is the applicant, and I will let him, I'm going to close this out. I'll let him
Hello, Brad.
do his thing.
Good evening.
Do you want to click from there?
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I'll go right up here. Here, it's fine. Oh, what?
You want to go back?
Yeah, please. Sorry about that. Good evening, trustees. My name is Brad Botham. I'm here on behalf of MI Homes. Sean did a pretty good brief introduction there, and as you guys are familiar, this is the site location, the general layout of the project. What I'd like to do first is tell you a little bit about who I am and who we are. As you know, my name is Brad. I've been with MI Homes for just under 10 years. I work for MI Homes. We are a national publicly traded home builder. We have 16 divisions across the United States, and we build roughly 5,500 homes to 6,000 homes. We're projecting closer to 6,000 homes in the 2019 year. We are currently the 13th largest builder in the United States, and I'm very proud to be a part of that. Again, everyone's familiar with the site location. So what I'd like to talk about first is, where we were at initially and sort of where we're at now. So I came in front of the Planning Commission in February proposing a 191 unit project. Through negotiations and efforts and discussions with the Township Planning Commissioners, as well as the residents of the community, we think we've come to a site plan that illustrates a really good design intent, as well as acknowledges the objectives of the Planning Commission, the Township staff, as well as some of the residents. So I'm here in front of you today with a new revised plan. What we've done is we've removed a handful of units down here to protect the integrity of the units to the south. We've removed some units in the northeast corner to help preserve some of the integrity of the neighbor's property. And we've also added some public benefit that I think is really unique and neat for the project. So I'm just going to go over some of the proposed features and benefits of the community, or of the project, and for the community. So the first one is that you'll enter into the community off of Elizabeth Lake Road with a boulevard entrance and a long, no-loaded road, which will be nicely landscaped. So when you move into the community, when you pull into the community, there will be a real sense of arrival. I think it's kind of a unique thing within the community, and it'll make the project and the residents who live within the community feel really good. It's a really nice grand entranceway. It's just something that you don't see as often as we would like to do. The next thing, which I'll get into on the next slide, is a central fitness court, and that will be an outdoor facility accessible to all the residents of the community, and that'll be located here. But I'll touch base on that in a moment. The next point is that this project, as currently proposed, will have 26.6 acres of the site left as open space, which I think is a really great thing. We think we've done a pretty good job of meeting some of the neighboring residents' goals, and I'll show you that on the next slide. But I just wanted to, or one of the next slides, but I just wanted to illustrate the substantial amount of open space within the community. The next thing within this project is a self-imposed and proposed 50-foot minimum structure setback. So what that means is, at a minimum, the rear of all of our homes across the entire perimeter will be a minimum of 50 feet from our property line. That does not include any additional setback that neighboring residents would have from their property line. So as you can see, in many cases, that setback is substantially larger. The next thing that we're going to do here is we're going to preserve
as much of the wooded area as possible along the perimeter. Now, given the topography on this site, it becomes challenging, but Matt Bush, the lead engineer on this project, has done a great job preserving a nice landscaped buffer along the perimeter, and I'll show you that in a subsequent slide as well. Again, as Sean mentioned, one of the two, what I feel are major benefits to the community fall under the underground utilities. We are proposing to bring utilities, and this is oriented to kind of not oriented appropriately, but we are bringing sanitary sewer from somewhere all the way up through here down to our entranceway. A portion of that will be force main, and a portion of that will be gravity fed. And I think that falls in the utility master plan of the township. So I think that's a pretty substantial benefit. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to upsize the water main from a connection point down here from 8 inches to 12 inches all the way up through the community to tie into Elizabeth Lake Road here. And I'm not an expert on water mains and pressures, but as far as I understand, this is a pretty substantial benefit to the community. And Aaron Potter, I think, can allude to that if you guys have any questions. Another benefit that we've proposed with this project is, although we've proposed public roads here, we are tying into public roads at 2 connection points, as Sean mentioned. And because we are tying into those points, given some discussions with the planning commissioners and the staff, we think it's our responsibility to contribute our tie-in portion for the community. So I'm going to contribute $10,000 for here and $10,000 for this connection here, for a total of $20,000 to the Colony Heights SAD. The next benefit that we're going to, that I've proposed and that we're going to work through at a future date with staff, is to come up with an estimate to run sidewalk, well, to make the I guess the frontage along Elizabeth Lake Road more pedestrian friendly. We're going to come up with an estimate to bring sidewalk across what would have been our frontage had we been fronting along Elizabeth Lake Road, and we'll contribute a portion of that Sean can put into and the staff can put into a sidewalk fund for future installment. We would be happy to, had there been right of way along these properties currently, we would be happy to install that, but unfortunately there is no right of way on the south side of Elizabeth Lake Road, and procuring easements can be surprisingly difficult from residents. So with that being said, we'd be happy to contribute, to helping make this area more pedestrian friendly through a contribution to the sidewalk fund. Again, I'll just talk a little bit about the product. As Sean mentioned here, there will be 93 single-family units. These will range in square footage from roughly 1,700 square feet to just over 2,000 square feet, depending on the options that buyers prefer. And these will start from the roughly 275, 285 we're projecting at this point, and most will transact in the low 300s, potentially mid 300s. With the villa product, which will be single story, geared towards the empty nester demographic, all single story living, will be a little bit smaller in square footage, roughly 1,400 to just over 1,800 square feet. And the starting prices will be very similar to the single family component to the north. So again, to bring in new construction in an area like White Lake at this price point is a very challenging thing to do, just given the cost of development and the cost of land in this general climate. Just to give you guys an example, at this point in time, it's costing us roughly $1,000 per lot lineal foot to develop a site, forgetting the cost of the land. So if you wanted to develop a 90-foot lot, before the cost of land, you're looking at a $90,000 lot. And to bring in affordable housing with such high development costs is not a feasible thing. The only way you can do that is to buy older, distressed assets, potentially from banks or other developers, where you can come in really under marketing, and these are really in kind of tertiary C and D markets where the housing product in general, it just tends to be of lesser quality. So bringing a product, 2 different product types at a price point where we're projecting here, I think is a pretty unique thing in a community like this. So my next slide relates to the grading plan that we have currently on the site. So all the areas highlighted in yellow will remain undisturbed. They're all very heavily wooded, and we have zero intention to clear any areas that are highlighted in yellow. So as you can see, we've created a pretty nice buffer to the multifamily to the east, to the south, as well as to the west. And again, when I was initially in front of the Planning Commission, this area, this preserved area, wasn't as substantial. And Matt Bush, the engineer from Atwell, has done a great job in refining the grading plan, tightening everything up, and trying to preserve and be conscious of the neighbors who surround our proposed project. So I think this is a really, really unique, really, really well-designed plan with regard to the grading. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about what I think is a really cool feature. We are planning to build 3 of these fitness courts in Southeast Michigan, two in other projects in different locations, and one we've proposed here. So this is an outdoor fitness court. It's roughly 35 feet by 45 feet in dimension, and it's part of a national fitness campaign geared towards promoting healthy lives, maintaining heart healthiness, and also promoting the integration of the community, right? This can be children 5 years old can use this, adults 65 or 70 can use this. It's all body weight driven. There are areas to work on your core. There are pull-up bars and rings and all sorts of different pieces of equipment to foster a healthy lifestyle. So I'm just going to show you guys a quick video of what this is, just to familiarize yourselves a little bit with what it is. And I may have to just, does that work, Sean?
Sure.
We'll find out.
Survey says.
We returned in 2018 and built partnerships with over 100 cities. We've raised over $15 million to help make fitness a priority across America, and we're just getting started. Let's make world-class fitness free for everyone.
Hi, I'm Mitch Menadger, founder of the National Fitness Campaign. National Fitness Campaign started in 1979 when we invented the fitness court. Our first 2 fitness courts were at Stanford and San Francisco, and the mayor and Wells Fargo Bank got behind the program. So we opened fitness courts in 4,000 cities across America.
We're introducing a new fitness court for the 21st century and launching a new national fitness campaign. The fitness court will allow you to use your own body weight to get a perfect workout. Our 7-movement, 7-minute system allows you to get a full body workout in just 7 minutes. 45 seconds of work at each station, followed by 15 seconds of rest. The system is progressive, so people at all fitness levels can use it. Easy or hard, it will work for everyone. You can come to the fitness court and do any workout. If you're training for a Tough Mudder or if you're running a marathon, the fitness court will work for you. You can download our mobile app, learn our routines, and take some of the fitness challenges. This will allow you to compete on the fitness court against your own score and against your friends. Campaign partners and sponsors will be providing exciting new elements in 2019. Digital training moves to Apple Watch audio guides. Regional training camps in 18 cities. Fitness court classes nationwide. The Fitness Court Challenge Series with local, regional, and national events. We're joining forces with city partners to build 200 fitness courts across America in 2019. NFC provides $30,000 in grant funding to match city adoption and local funding.
National Fitness Campaign is a social enterprise and I take no salary, so all the money we raise goes directly to building fitness courts across America.
We see the fitness court as the next step in the evolution of outdoor infrastructure.
I think it's amazing.
I love the fact that this is here and it's been here. It's awesome. You can do a ton of different kind of workouts here.
And at the end of the day, we all want a healthy, active community, no matter where we live.
We envision fitness courts joining basketball courts and tennis courts as essential elements of healthy infrastructure in cities and schools. Our goals are big, but the need is great. We're excited to work with you to build fit communities. Join us as we showcase the results of 100 cities who've partnered with us in 2018. Let's make world-class fitness free for everyone.
Cool. Interesting.
So just kind of a neat feature there. Sean, can you help me press the escape button there? Perfect. So next, I'd just like to show some elevations or exteriors of both product types. You know, as we evolve, as architectural styles evolve, we are seeing in many of our Midwestern markets for sure a transition to this craftsman farmhouse feel, as opposed to this traditional. You know, if you drive around the township, drive around a majority of southeastern Michigan, you see very heavy brick fronts, brick sides. It's a lot of the same. So I think this product that we're building across 10 of our 16 markets, we've got some markets in the South that have different architectural styles in Texas and in Florida and things of that nature. But in our Midwest markets, this product type is incredibly well received and tends to do very well in communities. So these are some representative elevations of the architectural style that we intend to build here on the two-story colonial side. For the ranches, elevations shown here just sort of mirror the craftsman farmhouse architecture of the single family, obviously in single story in nature. And with that, I'm happy to take questions.
Okay. Any of the board members have any questions? Mr. Roman.
Are those all vinyl sided?
They will be, yes.
The fitness center is cool, but how will that be maintained? Through the HOA?
The HOA, correct. It's very low maintenance.
So it's summer, like no snow year?
Correct. It can be used. It can be used in the winter. I don't know that people want to be outside without gloves on. But really, 3 seasons of the year.
So the HOA takes care of this, obviously the cleanup, the snow removal, if it's used in the winter time, the leaf removal in the fall.
That's correct.
Stuff. Okay.
That's all part of the commons maintenance.
Correct.
Okay.
That's the one nice thing about this particular type of development. You don't have to worry about a lot of that stuff. And
we'll actually
lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll actually have 2 associations here, just because the association responsibility as it relates to maintenance will be a little bit different between the communities, and we're probably going to split this as its own, the empty nester as its own HOA, and the single family as its own HOA, and there will be a master association for some shared costs, like for instance, the maintenance of the trailways. I forgot to even mention how many trails we have through here, but this site is incredibly walkable. If you look on the screen, we've got trail systems moving all through here, and all through here. So the master association will be responsible for maintaining all of that common space as well.
I have just one quick question. You've got that very small flag lot out there on Elizabeth Lake Road?
Yes, sir.
Is there an ultimate intention or purpose for that? I mean,
it's part of the parcel, and the more that I've been thinking about this, I'd be happy to donate it to the property owners, split it in half and donate it to the property owners if that's something that
it might actually make sense, because it really doesn't serve any purpose.
It's actually becoming more of a pain than it's worth.
So if you donated it to them, it should be working with the staff and getting the easement across the frontage in order to donate the side property.
It would be a nice thing, and I think if we can put that out there and the people understand that you're trying to be a good neighbor.
Sure, absolutely.
Through this process, it would be in your company's best interest and the township's best interest for us to get those easements, and if we can use this as part of that process, that would be great.
That's a great suggestion.
Kind of sitting in the back of my mind here as I've looked at this plan for some time now.
Right.
So Mr. O'Neill and I can have some further discussion on that.
Sure, that'd be great.
Thank you. Any other questions? Liz?
I have a couple. So I see your trail systems going through, which are great, but will there be sidewalks in front of each home? I don't see
both sides of the road. There will be.
I don't see it.
It's on the drawing. Zoom in quite a bit, but there are sidewalks on both sides of the road.
Okay, perfect. And then I would like to talk a little bit more about sidewalks and the possibilities, a little bit more of a discussion on Elizabeth Lake Road. So as it sits now, you'd be willing to pay into it, but it's not there on the plan, correct?
Correct. There is no the property owners that live on the south side of Elizabeth Lake Road have not granted right of way So I don't have the legal ability.
Right,
to,
I understand.
Yeah.
I just want to know how eager you are, because a ton of people walk on that road already trying to get to the party store and the local ice cream shop, and so for me, I'd really like to see that be walkable.
Well, maybe a
and safe.
notification program the township could go on to see if we could try to get these folks to buy into the need of it.
The Planning Commission had pushed pretty hard for this, and I agree. I think it's an important benefit, and because
People are walking it anyways, so we need to make it safer.
and because of the fact that there may not be enough right of way and there aren't easements yet, the developer was uncomfortable saying that they'll do it as a part of this process, because it could take many months to get all these easements. But obviously we have a Parks and Rec committee and a department that handles this, so the idea came up that we would work together with them to put a construction cost estimate together to allow them to make a contribution and basically turn over the responsibility of getting easements and then effectively putting it in with that money, turn that over to the township. So we're happy to do that. We actually talked to a couple of landowners who are already saying they're happy to give those easements because they'd like to see the sidewalk. So
I think a lot of people like to see the sidewalks there.
Sure.
And then the fitness center, will that be gated, or how will you monitor if it's used by your residents or just local White Lake residents?
We don't have any intention to gate it, and you know I would employ the HOA to police it as best they can. You know, obviously I can't be on site 24 hours
I'm
a
just
day.
wondering what your plan
Oh,
is.
yeah,
Will
yeah.
it be gated or not?
It will not be gated.
Okay. And then I did have a question prior to the meeting, but I have it answered already by Sean. I was a little concerned about the school district lines here because it's murky. It gets murky in there, whether it's Waterford school districts or Walled Lake, and it's Waterford, correct?
Correct.
So my concern was of us stressing our school system and resources with the up and coming bond that Walled Lake might go for in May, but it's irrelevant because it sits in Waterford schools. So I just wanted to mention that wasn't in the packet of where it sat school-wise, and that could potentially burden if it was Walled Lake, since we have taken up every open space there is between Union Lake and Williams Lake Road at the moment, and they would all feed into Dublin, but this will not feed into Dublin. I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, any other questions from the board?
Yeah.
Mr. Lilly.
You said one final thing, and it's really has to do with off-site. Sean, maybe you could pull something up there.
Yeah.
And it may not have all to do with this gentleman's development, but certainly a cooperative effort. It looks to me like the plan that you had originally. There was a small retention pond at the entranceway to his new subdivision. And
let me zoom in here.
the one right in the boulevard there.
Right here.
And it looks like the discharge from that is going to go down Elizabeth Lake Road. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. What concerns me is that the point that the discharge from the Colony Heights retention area are going to come together, both that discharge as well as the discharge coming down Elizabeth Lake Road. That the area north of there, through the township property, across the road and into Allen Lake, all of that needs to have some improvement. And I would like the engineer to look at that discharge there. May not be all of this gentleman's problem, but certainly a majority of it being Colony Heights people, that we not let that go to some future problem that the board's going to have. It's been probably almost 50 years, Colony Heights, without cleaning out the retention area there or the drainage across that area. I'm sure it's deteriorated and needs to be repaired, so I would like that to be noted in the record. And Mike, if you guys would look at that, make any suggestions. It's just something that can't be left go to argue about 5 years from now when flooding and everything else may occur with that. So I'd appreciate you looking at that. So.
The one thing that I wanted to mention that came up in discussions, they've shown you, and I'd have to go back to their PowerPoint. I'm going to go to this one. So in yellow, these are the areas that they're not going to disturb, and there were some residents who were concerned, about the monitoring of this, and this is something that will have to be staked out prior to a pre-construction meeting. So prior to them clearing any of this parcel, this will all be staked out. It will be laid out for our on-site daily inspector to see, so they can really make sure that the tree clearing crews are not getting into any of these areas, so they can be
And
preserved.
Sean, to put the public at ease, understand this is not our first project that we've had this type of easement. We had another project off of Williams Lake Road that was done the same way, and the results of that now is great. I mean, the summertime it is just very lush. A lot of trees have been left. There were flags put up.
So this is actually it. I'm glad you brought that up. This basically almost all the mature trees you see around this
They're all still
rectangular
there.
dirt. These are not on the neighboring properties. They're largely on this 14-acre parcel, roughly 14-acre parcel. So there is roughly a 60-foot area that's kind of a conservation easement that's around this entire perimeter, and they put in much smaller lots in order to give over to these areas, more area for conservation. And so that's a similar thing. There was obviously quite a bit of concern by the neighbors that this be protected, and it was. And really beyond that, they put some signage up here, so there was no additional clearing. And certainly that's something the Planning Commission can ask for, as well as periodic signage. In particular in the behind the homes that are single family, where they have the ability to make changes to their property, so that none of these lot owners start creeping back into these areas and clearing into an area that's not on their lot and that's supposed to be protected. So we can ask that be incorporated into the master deed language with an exhibit and possibly some signage along the way.
As it's done at the other project off.
Correct. Just that
Glen Ivy.
That is Ivy
Thank
Glen.
you. Ivy Glen.
Yeah.
Glen Ivy Glen? Okay.
Yeah.
Close enough. Same. At Ivy Glen. And it's definitely identifiable, and you can see, and it kind of gives it a natural boundary from your neighbors.
I mean, we heard several comments, traffic, stormwater, and this buffering. That was a big thing for the neighbors, and so it's obviously, and they're surrounded on all four sides by current neighbors, so that's something that's very key, very important. And the Planning Commission, was very strong with their opinion on how this should go. And in addition, at final, it's time we deal with landscaping, and they'll be supplementing in some of these areas where trees are going to be cleared. They'll be supplementing their the vegetation with more mature pine trees, not 5 or 6 footers, but 10 or 12 footers that are interspersed. They've made a proposal preliminarily, and we'll work together with them to make sure it's going to do the trick to, do some buffering.
Absolutely.
Okay, very good. Mr. Ruggles.
Just piggyback off what Sean said. We saw this twice at the Planning Commission, and we were a little uncomfortable the first time. So we requested some changes, and a lot of the changes that we see here, and a lot of the things that they're willing to do is a result of the comments from the residents. So I feel pretty good about the development we have in front of us. I think it's worth noting that Brad was more than willing to get rid of, I think it was 7 units, 4 and 3, and then reconfigure the property. He was willing to throw $20,000 to the community to the left, gate it during construction, which is important to everybody that lives in there. And we pushed for those sidewalks, which he was willing to do. So really everything that we pushed, he gave so far. So we've been pretty happy with that. I see a couple of residents are back again. I think Ken here had some comments, and Dwayne, I think it is. Me personally, I'm pretty happy with Brad's effort, and the Planning Commission was pretty satisfied.
Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Powell?
Yeah, did you want to go first?
Go ahead.
Okay. I
sorry,
just had a couple questions. You said something about active adult homes being the darker images there. Then you also identified a price on those. Since there is no common space, or it's all common space around those structures,
On the exterior wall, outside the exterior walls, it's all common element.
Okay,
Correct.
so these are going to be for sale, not for rent or lease.
Correct.
Correct. Okay, very good. So will there be any location outside those homes that might have limited common element, that if the couple wanted to have a little garden or flower beds or something like that, they could still plant those?
So in the front yard, we're going to offer a landscape package. As far as I have not contemplated rear yards. I tend to not. When we tend to develop, we tend to in empty nester communities like this to restrict certain uses, because you want to maintain the homogeneousness. That's not a word, but the intent of the community, I guess, is a way to say it. So, we don't allow typically in our empty nester communities for residents to put up play structures or basketball courts or things of that nature to preserve the intent. We would like to do the same thing here, and we'll certainly consider putting thought into what we will allow the empty nester residents to install and what we won't, just again to preserve the intent of the original intent of the use of the project.
Is there an age limit to those active adult units?
We don't intend to age restrict, but I will tell you that roughly 55% of our business at this point in time is active adult. We have hit our target demographic greater than 95%. The product really dictates the buyer. I'll give you an example. From a price per square foot basis, to build ranches is 20 to 30% more. It costs me 20 to 30% more to build, because I don't have that second story where I gain efficiency. So when new families are in the market, they don't see value in the ranch plan, because they can go buy a 2-story colonial plan and get much more bang for their buck in terms of price per square foot. So the product really does drive the ultimate demographic that buys the product.
So the active adult, you figure, is empty nester, not millennials or active professionals?
That's correct.
Careful or you start age discriminating.
Okay, then I just wondered whether or not there's an overall contract for landscaping and for mowing the grass in the active adult area?
So that's something that we are going back and forth on. We do it a handful of different ways. We have active adult communities where the association just handles the snow removal of the driveways, but does not do the landscape maintenance. We have communities that do both, that maintain the landscaping of outside the unit themselves, as well as snow removal of the driveway. But it really comes down to how we want to burden the residents of the HOA, right? The more services that the HOA provides, the more the monthly or annual HOA dues are. So in communities where we've got a community in Bloomfield Hills, where the product is all north of $1 million, and they don't necessarily care that their HOA dues are $2,000 a year, right? Whereas as a project like this, where the price points, you're a little bit more sensitive to price point, we don't necessarily want to burden the residents of the active adult community with an extra cost, right? A resident could say, well, my uncle is a snowplow guy, he might give me a better deal, and I want to save this extra $50 a month, or whatever the case may be. So we do it a handful of different ways, depending on the location of the project and the actual price point of the product itself. So here we haven't quite made a determination of what we'll include yet. And there are times where we have an initial intent, and throughout the construction and sales period, that intent changes, and we modify the condo documents, according to what the market dictates. So at this point, I don't have a firm answer for you on that as far as what we intend to do with the active adult component, but that is certainly, we consider that certainly in every one of our active adult communities.
So your maintenance fees are between $100 and $200 a month?
typically that's a pretty close range. Again, it depends on the amenities, right? If you've got a big pond with a giant fountain, or it's project specific, but that's a pretty accurate range.
Okay, and then I had a couple observations that for staff here. Maybe Aaron, the extension of utilities for phase 2 and phase 1. Does each phase stand on its own, and is there any problem with looping water mains through phase 2 that must be built as part of phase 1? Have you looked at that?
We have talked about that a little bit. We haven't seen a phase plan for utilities submitted yet at this time. That's something that typically happens in final site plan.
Okay, but you'll follow that through?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. And then I wanted to just give an observation to the board, and I didn't know if it would solicit any discussion or not. This project has a lot of terrain, as you can well imagine. It's going to be a beautiful site when it's done. The township ordinance promotes that a maximum slope of 1 to 3. That's 1 foot vertical for every 3 feet horizontal. You can actually put a riding lawnmower on that. In the surrounding areas of this site, there's a great deal more benefit to preserve existing vegetation than plant new. So there are a great deal of additional techniques to stabilize slopes steeper than a 1-on-3. And I would be one that would be willing to authorize their engineer, who is a very good engineer, by the way, I've worked with them in the past, to allow for them to maybe steepen some of those slopes up and using slope stabilization techniques in order to preserve even more vegetation around the perimeter of this than what our ordinance actually requires. So that I'm going to suggest that could be done. I want to absolutely support the private roads. The idea of public roads dedicated to the county, is extremely old-fashioned. The county doesn't want them. They put a burden on developers, and quite frankly, it's 3 weeks after it snows that they come and plow, and if you need to replace them, they don't replace them at their cost. They charge the residents very handsomely to replace the roads in public roadways. So I'm a major proponent of private roads, and maybe the staff and I can look at modifying that requirement in our ordinances for developments other than PUDs. I wanted to compliment our staff and consultants. I think they did a great job in reviewing this, and the Planning Commission really stepped up. And this is this product is so needed here in this township. I, for one, am downsizing, and I'd love to move into this development tomorrow. It's really fantastic. I also wanted to make sure that our staff looked at potentially stubbing sanitary sewer to each direction as well. And I don't know if the pump stations or anything, the way it's laid out right now, it appears like each home's going to have a grinder pump, and I'm not sure that's necessarily the most efficient way to do it on the plan here. So if we can provide sewer extensions to our neighbors to the south, to the neighbors to each side, that would certainly assist in us allowing them to be served as well. I really like this development. I think it's a good choice.
It's a good location. Sanitary issue, if I can.
Sure, go ahead, Aaron.
The sanitary on site will be gravity. There is a proposed lift station.
Good.
That will be up towards just south of the small detention pond Terry mentioned.
Okay.
To the west side of the boulevard. One issue that we did have in both my reviews and I believe our township engineer's reviews was the interpretation of the ordinance requirement to extend sanitary across the frontage for future extension. This parcel, as you can see, doesn't have a lot of frontage, but they do have this flagpole that comes out to Elizabeth Lake Road. And so I'd like the township board to, I guess, give us some guidance as to how you would like this interpreted on plans like this, and with this plan or in the future. So our ordinance currently states that sanitary sewer should be extended across the entire frontage for for the purpose of future extension. Now, these developers are proposing gravity on site to a lift station up towards the front entrance, and then force main leaving the site heading westward down Elizabeth Lake Road to the high point near Colony Heights. And then from that point, gravity westward to connect to the existing gravity sanitary on Elizabeth Lake Road. Now, the question that we had was that flagpole as part of this development, does that count as frontage? And thereby require them to extend sanitary for extension to the east, to the eastern edge of that frontage as part of this plan. And so we put it in the comments, and I asked the Planning Commission to put it in their comments that, you know, we'd like some clarification on the board on how you interpret that in this case.
Well, I think it's just one of the things that just came up was when I asked that question about the flag. It just doesn't make any sense for them to retain that particular parcel of land. And if we can use that as a tool to help with the easements for the sidewalk, I think much is to be gained in that respect. As far as the frontage goes, the frontage is that. It's the frontage they have currently on Elizabeth Lake Road. I don't believe they would be responsible for running it beyond that end of it. That's my interpretation of how I see that. The flag is the little quirk, but
That is
again,
the
we've
quirk,
already
yeah.
had some comment and discussion on that and some direction by the developer to start going in that direction. So I'd like you to, if you could, follow that up with a email that kind of outlines that thought process to Sean, so we have a record.
I bring it up just for the record. We do have Mr. Mulligan that owns Mulligan's Landscaping, has contacted Sean's department and my department with expression of interest to, start an SAD for extension to serve his parcel. And so, where this sanitary extension ends as part of this development could significantly change the cost and the scope of that SAD. But like Sean said, there are no right-of-ways. All these other residential parcels on Elizabeth Lake Road have not granted right-of-way. So their parcels go all the way to the center line of the road. So there would be a lot of easement work required, and I'm certainly in favor of. I mentioned at the Planning Commission multi-purpose easement. We can put sanitary and sidewalk in the same easement space. It doesn't really significantly change costs of repairs or anything like that, in my opinion. So I'd be willing to chip in some of that work to see if we can achieve that, but just wanted to get your opinions.
It would
on
be
this
nice to have the
flagpole.
easements in place.
We could tell him where to start and get some accurate cost estimates for him so we can get going on that work.
Mr. Supervisor, quickly.
Yes.
I would interpret the frontage along Elizabeth Lake Road just like you, there at the boulevard section. That's going to be forced main anyway, so I would think an intermediate flushing connection at their east property line there at the intersection would make a great deal of sense, and then the extension to the east is another project, in my impression.
That's my interpretation of it also, with the work I've done. Mr. Ruggles?
I was just going to say the same thing. If we were talking about making these guys pay to go to that flagpole, I think that's just ridiculous.
Well,
I told them at the Planning Commission that
Yeah, the
give it away
developer
first,
has contributed some pretty good public benefit with the 12-inch water main. So the 12-inch water main, just since we're talking about it, will be extended all the way up through the development and connect over to Woods Edge Drive. Basically, be almost a direct path.
That's great.
From our Hillview and Herondale
Huge
sites
improvement.
to the tank at Woods Edge Drive. Significantly help reduce head pressures at those sites.
Yeah.
I would fork that. I also agree.
Good.
So I think the developer, when we talked to the Planning Commission about whether the flagpole is.
it provides nothing
I
but
think you
headaches.
just I think you sort of found out where your limits are right
Yeah,
about now.
absolutely.
So, okay. Thanks, Mr. Ruggles, and thank you for all your work that you
Yes.
did with the Planning Commission. I know this was an interesting project and a challenging one at that. One of the things I would like to comment on, though, is what Mr. Powell said was, one of the things that we are trying to do here in White Lake Township when we can is we are trying to encourage developers to voluntarily try to preserve some of the wooded areas. We have not gone down the road of a woodland ordinance because we really just don't want to go there. It's not a kind of thing I want to be telling people how to. I personally am not going to tell somebody what tree they can or can't cut down. Okay. So, and I know there's some recent legislation, different issues and things going on, but the value in having as much of that area as green as you can. And again, I believe that, we could look at it from an engineering standpoint of stabilization, and make sure that it minimizes soil erosion until everything kind of gets back to its nature of root, would only be an enhancement to your project and to the community. So I would really strongly recommend that you talk to your engineer and take a look at it. And if you need to get a little creative, I'm sure that our engineer and the planning department will look at it and try to work with you any way we can to enhance that area for not only the new residents, but the other residents in the surrounding area as well.
Of course.
So I would encourage that.
So that was kind of going to be my two follow-ups. You answered most of my questions. I just kind of want a little bit of clarity of what was considered an active adult, because we need both in White Lake so much. We have the baby boomers that need to downsize, and then we don't have much for young professionals. So I'm glad to have some clarification that both are welcome in this community. That's wonderful, and I think it'll be very attractive that they're not attached. So I think you've done a very nice job.
Thank you.
On a personal level, this area is probably one of our prettiest open spaces we have in White Lake, so I'm a little sorry to see it go. So I would also be very supportive in keeping as much green as we possibly can, because the super sub is what is referred to around it, actually uses this quite a bit. Walking trails, it's almost like a mini little sand dunes back there, our White Lake sand dunes. It's beautiful back there. So so if we can preserve that beauty, I would really appreciate that.
Okay. Mr. Lilly?
I just wanted to remind you that this item is both item D and E. So
Correct.
don't mix those up.
So what we need to do first, I want to move forward, please. Yes.
One other comment I'd like
Yes,
to make.
sir.
I just talking to Sean about the cooperation that this gentleman has offered to the Planning Commission. Sometimes our rules appear to be strict, but a lot of times it's the hesitancy of the consultants to properly address the issues that have been put before them. And Sean has made a comment that have been very cooperative as far as responding to those. I want to say thank you for that.
It's obvious that this has worked well, because from initial submittal till now, that window has been very small.
We have in the Midwest, we've got a very defined development window. So, we're excited about the project.
We appreciate that. This will go through in two different motions. The first motion that we're looking for is for the first reading of the Trailside Meadows rezoning. I am looking for a motion for that, please. Mr. Lilly.
Make a motion to move this Trailside Meadows rezoning to second hearing.
Move to second. Looking for support?
Support.
I have support from Mr. Roman. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Item 10E, preliminary site plan of the Trailside Meadows project. I'm looking for a motion on that. Mr. Lilly.
Make a motion to approve preliminary site plan for...
I had one question, Mr. Supervisor.
Question, yes, sir.
I didn't get a chance to ask you. Just one quick question on the empty nester parcels. You mentioned outside the walls would be common elements.
Correct.
Are you proposing that some of that will be limited common element?
Yeah, I believe Mr. Powell asked that question. Yes.
Okay, I'm all set.
Mr. Supervisor, we have a question in the audience.
I would get to it sooner or later, but go ahead. Identify. I know who you are, but they're...
Go ahead and...
You sure? Okay. All right. So, Mr. Clerk, please, go ahead.
Make a motion to approve preliminary site plan for the Trailside Meadows, subject to all of the departmental and consultants' recommendation being satisfied.
I have a motion.
I'll second that if Mr. Lilly including the discussions at this board level tonight as well.
I'll amend my motion to include the Township Board discussions.
And I'll second that.
I have a motion, I have support. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Question. I think that one will pick her up.
Denise Stebanek, Library Director of White Lake. A question, and maybe you guys can help me understand. Nothing against your project, looks great. How is the discussion on the sewer different from the discussion on our water line that we had put in? All the way across the property.
You mean the loop system?
The what?
You mean the looping of the water system? That's what you're talking about?
A huge difference. This project not only loops in several locations, didn't have to, but they looped it in several locations. They actually upsized from an 8-inch, which was required, to a 12-inch. They're putting substantially more into their water system than the library ever thought of doing.
Now, okay, as far as the sewer is concerned.
That's water.
Water, I understand.
Correct.
Sewer, he's not being required to go across the front of the
He is
property.
going across.
He's
All the
going
way across.
half a mile.
Half a
No,
mile.
all the way across.
He's going down a half a mile
No, I
to
know,
pick up
don't-
pick up sanitary.
Okay, I just
Right.
want clarification.
Yes.
They're going,
So
they're extending.
on Elizabeth Lake Road, there's going to be sewer all the way through there.
In front of his property.
To his project.
And what were we talking about with regard to Mulligan's? He wanted to be SAD.
That's a separate project altogether. There was an interest from the Mulligan Group
But
to go on to
there
serve
was discussion about why it would be less expensive for him if,
Because I'm already building a half mile of it.
He's building a half
Build
mile.
a half mile of it. Yeah.
So that he doesn't have to come for that.
Mr. Supervisor,
Yes.
we answered her question.
We did. Okay. Do you have anything else? Want to move on?
Bring up another
Seri-
Okay. We've already put this issue before us. We voted on it. We're moving forward. Okay. If you would like to discuss anything, I'm sure the planning department or my office would be more than happy to entertain any questions you have to further answer any questions that we could. Okay. So, okay.
For your time.
Thank you very much. And
Nice presentation.
nice presentation. Yes. Okay. We have item 10G. 10F, which is the request to reappoint Mr. John Kohalvi to our Civil Service Board.
Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to reappoint John Kohalvi to additional 6-year term on the Township Civil Service. I know John has served with us a long time and a very dedicated member and deserve an additional 6 years on the commission.
I believe that is the case. He's a fine gentleman that believes in his community and enjoys serving, and he called me and was most anxious to be reappointed.
I'll support that. John was a neighbor of mine for years, so I don't think you could have a better addition.
I question his sanity wanting to continue.
Well,
and,
that's another story. We didn't go with that, so. So, Mr. Lee, I'll take that as a motion.
That was a motion, and Mike supported that.
Mike support, all in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Kohalvi is back on the civil service. Item G, which we added, is our typical tri-party 2019 gravel road program. It came in a little bit late, but I wanted to get it because we have a requirement to get it back to the county. You should have a copy of that.
I don't believe we have.
Well, I do have extra copies here because
It's pretty standard, and so
We can share one this way.
here, I'll send a couple of these down, and I highlighted them out. So we go.
Yeah.
It's a very
Yeah, we can share.
similar program. Anybody?
Yeah, no. I agree.
We go through every year. It's just how it kind of got to us.
74,000.
So of course, our tri-party funding on that, the cost of the project to maintain our gravel roads and to do the bedding in the areas of which the Road Commission of Oakland County feels needs to have the improvements is $174,886. Our portion of that is $58,295, being 100% of the community's tri-party contribution. And if there's any questions on that, I will try to answer them. Mr. Lilly?
Make a motion to approve the cost participation agreement for the 2019 gravel road project and the White Lake Township contribution of $58,295 and authorize the Township Supervisor to sign.
Thank you, sir. I have a motion, looking for support. Support. Motion and support, all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, thank you. Okay, we'll be moving on to trustee comments here, but I do have one thing I want to talk about. Recently, we've had some conversation with the Huron Valley School District and their request to have a water main extension down Bogey Lake Road to service the Lakeland School Complex. Okay, we are in the process of looking at going through a application through the DWRF program and are diligently working on that to move forward. Huron Valley High School campus approached the township around Christmas, and as most of my board members know, we actually went to them 2 years ago, and we had a discussion which was not received at that time. However, there are some new folks down there that have some vision, and I believe they have the best interests of the school complex as well as the township in mind. And it's roughly 2.2 miles down Bogey Lake Road. Now, this is a low-interest loan program through the MDQ and the DWRF, which is the Drinking Water Revolving Fund. Did I say that right? Okay. So they are citing that their water quality and reliability problems are the driving need. They have one well. You told me it produced so little water, my sump pump produces more water than that thing. I'm not kidding you, it does. I mean,
10 gallons per minute.
10 gallons per minute. Now, how do you flush?
They have a tower, but that's...
Yeah, I know, but it's astounding that it's that poor. So they do have some issues. I mean,
The problem with that they have is their firm capacity is then 10 gallons per minute. If they lose their 500 GPM well, they're done.
So we have, while White Lake, has a similar basic quality, we are proposing also, has been in our development plan for the water system, is to look at our second iron filtration plant at Aspen Meadows. And that would be the plant that would then alleviate the issues that we have with our remaining water quality issues throughout, I'd say basically most of the township, if not all, but.
Most of the township, most of the time.
Yeah, most of the time. I like that answer. Most of the township, most of the time. And to show their determination and cooperation, they've deposited $20,000 into a trust and agency escrow account, which will be a pass-through expense, to have Johnson Anderson and the township complete the plan that is due by May 1st. So J&A is under the gun. So
Very much so.
So
Hey, Rick, before you switch topics.
I'm not done.
Oh, okay, go.
Okay. Okay. March 14th, the advertisement for the public hearing to the clerk's office for the spinal column will go out. March 20th, the spinal column publishes notification of a public hearing with a 30-day minimum notice. April 23rd is proposed special township board meeting. Mark your calendars, folks.
What's the date?
April 23rd, with the public hearing, and the township board at that time will hopefully pass a resolution accepting the project plan. I'll get to that, to define that in a moment. The 29th, we'll have a signed resolution to J&A to be included in the project plan. And May 1st, of course, is the deadline to submit the DEQ DWRF section for consideration for 2020 funding. The basic details meet the plan as a driving need for school districts to supply better water quality to their students as well as the township. The desire to add iron filtration is the same purpose. We'll both benefit from the main extension down Bogey Lake Road. Obviously, there's a lot that has to be done. It may be an oversimplification. I'm not going to get into all the nuts and bolts of it right now, but I just wanted to give you a heads up. We will have a special meeting, and you'll be sent out notice of information as it becomes available through Aaron's department. Did I get it all?
You got it.
Okay. So now I'm moving on. Yes, you have a question?
Mike Kowal came in the other day, and we were talking about this project, and he mentioned because it's a school system that wants to extend the line, he thinks there is grant money available. So just FYI, be aware.
We
can get that money.
Well.
Yeah, we are scouring, so it is something that needs to be done. So we'll get into the nuts and bolts of that later. So on to trustee comments. Andrea.
At first, I'd like to start off by apologizing for being absent last month. But when friends ask you to go to St. Martin in February, it's pretty hard to turn down. I also encourage all residents to use the Vacation Home Watch, because I definitely was one of the 3,810 people that utilized it last year also. Mostly I say that because I had some challenges while I was on vacation, and they called my emergency contact to help me figure out, to help them contact me. So, definitely use the Vacation House Watch. Police officers come daily, walk around your house, check your windows, check your doors, and definitely contact you if there's something going on. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Smith?
Okay, so the next library board meeting for March is March 27th at 6:45 p.m. And then I was going to request to put this on the agenda for next month, but I'm going to jump the gun a little bit and just give my colleagues a head up since we had such a great presentation and celebration of our police department. I'm so honored I've been asked to be part of a committee to support Michigan Police Week. And so I'm going to be asking my colleagues to support an official resolution next month on our agenda to make Michigan Police Week in White Lake Township May 12th through 18th. And then hopefully in collaboration, we can come up with some ideas of ways to show our support and appreciation to our department. And if any residents have any ideas of ways that they would like to support our department that week, please contact me and let me know. So I'm going to request that for next month, so we have a little time to plan for May. And then, as Chief Keller mentioned, we do have this new CERT program. My husband and I are really looking forward to participating in the first class. And I'd encourage all residents, if you'd like to join in on that. They're going to hold several series of classes. Let's see. I'll skip a few of these. We can talk about them next month. Lastly, I would like to genuinely thank Chief Gurka for his service, outstanding service to our community. If you haven't heard, he is retiring at the end of this month. His dedication to our fire department and community is unparalleled. We have been incredibly blessed to have him as a chief. We have had the opportunity to have the best of the best, in my opinion. He is a true man of character and will be surely missed in White Lake Township. I have truly enjoyed working with him, and I know that his department feels the same way about him. It is with my highest admiration that I wish him the best in the next chapter of his life. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ruggles?
Yeah, I'd like to say happy St. Patrick's Day. And congratulations to the police department on their newfound accreditation. And I'd like to talk about the roads in White Lake. And one thing that always comes up planning and at this board level is the road issue. And we can't restrict development because these roads are so congested, but maybe there's some way that we can try to address it as a board and throw some money at it. I mean, Elizabeth Lake Road, Oxbow Lake Road, Union Lake Road, I mean, it's just, it's getting worse. And I know Mr. Supervisor's always meeting with the road commission to discuss that, but there's
I have
some
an
way-
update, but
yeah,
that's part of
there's
my
some way
talk.
we can toss some money at this to kind of speed it up. I mean, it's I'd say that's one of the biggest issues that we face here in White Lake is those roads down there. I mean, it's not great anywhere. White Lake Road right now, I hit my head on my ceiling when I go over 50, but you know.
I agree. We have like 4 or 5 schools that spoke off Elizabeth Lake Road. It's in desperate need of repair.
Yeah, and we've discussed it. You know, Oxbow Elementary there, that intersection's a real challenge. So, if there's something we can do to help that, I'd like to look into it. So, thanks.
Mr. Lilly?
Just like to congratulate Dan Keller again on a job well done. He does an excellent job for us, and not more. I kid Dan a lot about not wanting to vote for his police cars sometimes, but it's all kidding aside. He does an excellent job for us. Also want to thank Matt Silverhorn and Lieutenant Hild for the job that they do. In fact, all of our officers, we couldn't ask for much more than what we have. I'd like to acknowledge the retirement of Chief Gurka today. Also, I want to let the board know that I have received Consumers Energy request to renew their contract that before waiting off to legal counsel, and hopefully we'll have something for next meeting. I'm going to suggest that the issue of the library keeps coming up and up and up, and I'm going to suggest that, Mr. Supervisor, we ask for the library requests in writing, that they be somewhat specific. I think last requests that come to the board, I had no idea what they were talking about. I think you're kind of in a similar situation. This conversation that keeps going on is crazy. It should not be occurring the way it is. Particularly question again tonight, why are we doing something different from the library that we're doing for development? And there is no different. We haven't deviated from what we've done for a number of years. So,
Terry, just to let you know, Mr. Roman and
Mr.
myself.
Mr. Lilly is speaking.
And hope
just a
to-
comment. So,
Okay.
also I'm going to concur with Mr. Ruggles and appreciate the meetings that I've shared with you with the road commission. Absolutely, I agree. Something's got to be done. But for us to take a bunch of money and just keep throwing it to the road commission when there's thousands of dollars that should be available somewhere for White Lake Township, that it shouldn't be all on the burden of the residents. We know that we have shared some minor money with the road commission to do some work, particularly at Cedar Island Road. That was a minor issue, but it was a huge improvement for a small investment, and I would hope that we continue doing that, but we do have to stay on the road commission. They're getting bad. They're terrible.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. A couple things I want to recognize Chief Andrew Gurka and his retirement. Can't find a more honorable man and a better chief. So wish him nothing but the best in the future for Chief Gurka. Also, I want to reiterate that I'm a major fan of private roads in new developments. But saying that, we have the ability to then look at providing a sinking fund in the development agreement and the approvals for private roads, so that slowly they build up, so in 20 years they have enough money to repair and replace those roadways instead of us going out for an SAD. So a sinking fund for the repair of private roads would be very helpful. And then also I'd like this board to consider the same priority of dust and tri-party funds for gravel, the roads, to extending sanitary sewers. We have areas that it's a shame. People are being asked to put in $40,000 septic systems that are going to fail again in the near future, and we have the ability to extend them sanitary sewers, and so far we have not. And I'd like to force that issue in the near future. So thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you. Mr. Roman.
I also want to acknowledge really all of our public safety employees. You guys all make me so proud.
Yeah.
And Chief Keller, you know, what you did to get this MACP accreditation, that's awesome. Just thank you so much for all your work. Our public safety employees hold such an excellent reputation in the township, and I know we're all proud. I want to thank all of our residents for coming to the board meeting. And that's all I had, Rick.
Okay. It's pretty amazing that a small town like ours, one of, tonight we find out of 600 law enforcement agencies, that we're only one of 16 that hold this accreditation. Now, if you can't walk down the street and hold your head up high over that one, I don't know what you got to talk about. So every now and then we got to fly our own flag, and this is in particular one of those cases. So kudos to Chief Keller and his staff, everyone that worked so diligently on it. Larry Sheldon, who I'm sure was a key element in it, in his support. I understood he saved a truck from the lake up there in his area. He made the news too. So Larry, if you're out there, kudos to that. So, but it's just important to know that, because when we have a developer like, was Brad? Brad, when Brad comes in, I beg your pardon, and looks at our community, they're not only looking at a community that has an opportunity because we have land, they are looking at a community that has safety, schools, and as much as possible, a government that's trying to do the right things the best we can, and do them as economically as we can, like maintaining within our budget or actually performing under our budget, and trying to do things in the best interest of the community. You know, the school millage is a benefit to our community too, although none of us likes to pay taxes. That's part of the other perception of the community, the safety and the schools. So we do have the new leadership at the schools, which I will tell you was a welcome as a daisy in the spring. They came in, they spoke with me, they took an interest in what we're doing. They want to know, you know, what they can do to work with the township in a myriad of different ways. So we're going to see what will bloom from that relationship. So in regards to the sewers, you know, we have been after a certain area down Pinecrest off Bogey Lake Road, and Mr. Potter, to his credit, has been very diligent at that and trying to get things worked out. Mike's been right there working with him. So whenever I talk about it, there's always a connection here of the Blues Brothers here. So they are trying to get it so that we can get an expansion on that Bogey Lake District, and by what you sent me, the interest is fairly high. So I'm hoping that we'll have some success on that, which would take a lot of pressure off that little lake and would make a significant difference. So we are working on these things. They're not necessarily out there in the forefront, but we're trying to work on them in a positive, brick by brick manner. The Road Commission. Well, we've had some interesting talks, and we just had a recent talk about intersections and safety intersections, and they put a few things out there that we talked about. It was revealed that indeed there's going to be some sort of a master plan that's in the works for the intersection of Teggerdine and Oxbow. So there is something in the works, and I'm hoping to have privy to that before too long, and then of course once we know what it is, we'll bring it out to the public. So they are aware of it. They are very aware, Mr. Lilly and myself. Were you at that meeting? We kind of let them know our opinion on Union Lake Road and Elizabeth Lake Road in particular, and they did tell us that they are going to have a base patching and a surface patch program out this summer on those areas, and I'm going to watch that very closely because I want to see that come to fruition. Some of the monies that the Township Board had decided to set aside when we did our budget did go for, in fact, the project off of Cedar Island Road, which may have been small, but it solved a huge problem over there and is definitely a noticeable improvement. And we're now going to get after the Road Commission to take a look at a couple other intersections, and they are receptive to it. I think at this moment in time, I think they're basically overwhelmed with the amount of projects that they have, so they're trying to prioritize them.
Potholes.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed that we have not received any major preservation overlay projects in White Lake this season. So I'm going to push them at their strategic planning meeting to see what they can do to help us out, because we are seeing a steady increase of vehicles and a steady increase of residents. If everything that we have on the books right now comes to fruition, there are probably anywhere between 500 and 600 new residences in the township within the next 18 to 24 months, something like that. Pretty close. So this one development alone was 184. So, and with other areas opening up around the township, we're bound to see some. So I know that I can sleep good at night knowing this board tries to make every attempt to take the preservation of whatever open land we can save, whatever buffers we can put in, So we would like to be able to have more residents be able to look at as these projects come in and come to fruition, so that someone could say, well, what did they do in this neighborhood? Well, it's someone's property, they have a right to develop it, but if they're willing to work with us, it makes it a better product for the community and also an end job for the builder to have to sell to the public. I like the houses, the architectural design. I think it's kind of cool. We've got a product that I think we're missing in the food chain, so to speak, over here. Has my attention. And it's something that I think it's all worthwhile having. Good news, I spoke with our attorney Lisa.
Yes.
She, if all goes well, will be back here next month.
Oh, fantastic.
So she's doing quite well. The good Lord's watching over her, and our prayers and thoughts have been helpful. Everything came back negative, and she's good. She looked like the Bride of Frankenstein with all the staples she had in her head, and I'm going to tease her about that. But I do it with great affection. With that, I would also like to wish Chief Gurka well in his retirement, and we will move on as White Lake does, and we will go forward and keep moving in the right direction. So, with that, I say good night, God bless, and
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Support. Support. All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourned.